You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I'm your host, Kathy Biasi, and I'm a holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. The way we approach a situation, a challenge, and just in general, how we approach life has a lot to do with how we talk to ourselves, our internal speak. Our self-speak impacts our decisions, the directions we take, and our mental health. And while many of us find ourselves using negative internal language to buffer against failure or disappointment, research clearly shows that positive self-talk can improve self-esteem, stress management, and overall well-being. And to join us today in a discussion about cultivating positive self-speak is my guest, Faust Ruggiero, and he is a psychologist who has been in private practice for over 35 years. Before entering private practice, he worked in clinics for deaf children, prisons, nursing homes, substance abuse centers, inpatient facilities, and is a consultant for major national and international corporations. He is a published research author and a professional clinical trainer. In the summer of 2016, he began to develop the Fix Yourself Empowerment Series based on the Process Life program to help readers address difficult situations in their lives. The series currently includes the Fix Yourself Handbook, the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook, the Fix Your Depression Handbook, and the Fix Your Anger Handbook. I loved this show today. I think we all have a problem every once in a while, at the very least, with how we talk to ourselves. And how to cultivate self-speak is another step we can take to improving our overall health, both physical and mental. We talk about how negative internal language blocks our progress, blocks the goals we are trying to achieve, and increases disease potential. We talk about steps to help us move in the direction of cultivating positive internal language, and how the energy around us impacts our mental health. Great show. Please stay tuned. We will be back in just a few minutes to talk with our guest, Faust Ruggiero.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub, everybody. Today's show has been pre-recorded. No opportunity for calling in. Please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC. And when this radio show is turned over into a podcast, you can find us on all your favorite podcast sites. So again, please subscribe to that. We have wonderful guests. Faust is one of them. Welcome to the show, Faust.
Kathy, it's a thrill to be with you. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Well, in a time where the world is looking for positivity and a way to scrape and claw its way to good mental health, people like you are people we need. You've created, as we'll get into, you've created a series of books to help people in areas of mental health. How did you get to this space?
That's one of those things I get asked a lot. And for some people, Kathy, you train, you pick something and you go into it. I'm one of those people that, it picked me. I just was born into it, so to speak. I was that young kid that everybody talked to. I loved to listen to people. So it just grew. And when I got to the point that, graduating high school, what do I want to do? Well, it wasn't like I had to really think hard. Psychology was going to be the choice, and it just took off from there. So now, I'm 69 years old. I'm still practicing. I'm writing. I'm doing everything that I'm doing. It's been a great trip.
Even within your career in psychology, you've had massive shifts in focus, haven't you?
I have, and those were not shifts that, just came along. Those were shifts that I put in there purposely. I even did that when I was in college. Most people will go into a track, say clinical psychology. I did clinical and developmental, which is a study of normal development and research. So when I got out, I said, if I'm going to go into private practice, I want to have some other places to pull from. So it was, clinics and working with deaf kids and prisons and all that. So I just put all these things in. I have reference points that I wanted when I counsel people. I didn't want to be just one dimensional. I wanted to be someone that could draw from a lot of different places.
When you talk about mental, I mean, it's so right now in the focus of so many. We are connecting mental health with our physical health. We are using gut health to improve mental health. We're using society. It's a rough time to keep our heads on straight, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's going fast. That's the problem. And it's hard to calm down, to slow it down because we've never done this kind of a thing before. Computers and AI and everything have taken over, and the pace is so fast. And unlike in previous generations where, the generation before us kind of knew where it was going and how to get us there, we don't have that dynamic anymore. No one knows where it's going. So we're all trying to guide each other through this together. It's not easy when you don't have a template that we know you can move with.
Well, when I look at history, I tend to do this, even in the financial space. We tend to look at the here and now and think that history is 5 to 10 years. But when you look over the long term, when you go back and you look over different periods, do you think when we look back, well, we won't be here, but do you think when people will look back on this period of time, do you think that at that point there will have been a huge adjustment? Are we in just a really difficult space right now that perhaps the next generation will accommodate for? Social media won't be as prevalent for finding our place in society. Do you think that will have its space and not be as prevalent as it is now because now is new?
It feels prevalent. I think you're right. It's new. That's the right way to look at it. I think we are in a transition time, such a transition that we're not sure where it's going to go. As I said, AI is going to take over everything. Social media is not going to be big. When they look back at us, I think we're going to be a blur. There's nothing defining it now. I think we are simply the step to whatever is going to happen next. You and I probably won't see much of it, although it is moving so fast. We're going to get a glimpse. But what we're seeing with the way the world's moving is that it's going so fast, it's transitioning, and there's going to be a place where this all sort of comes together. Social media will become a thing of the past because you're going to be able to access anything, anywhere you want it. And that's just the way it's going to go. You're going to be able to do all different kinds of things in any space you are. We're implanting people with devices. I mean, that's another step I'm hearing people talk about.
Right.
Or as opposed to taking your cell phone with you, there'll be an implant and you touch it or you think it or whatever it is. So we're a blur right now. We're just a step.
Yeah, I agree. And at present, social media is for a lot of kids, adults, all of us really. We can't, none of us can say that we're not affected by social media. But at present state, social media is a lot of where people are looking for identity. And maybe as we progress and as brains progress, and there are studies showing that children's brains are wired different than our brains just because of the fast pacedness. But maybe that piece of searching for identity within the posts of other people, that becomes a huge shift too. But within this, and something that we talked about off air a bit, is the whole idea of how we look at other people and then transfer that to ourselves and talk to ourselves in a particular way. And this is, something we haven't really talked about on the show, and I think is going to be a great topic of conversation, is self-speak. How, in broad sweeps right now, why is this such an important part of our mental health, positively and negatively?
Well, when you think about it, Kathy, we're in our heads most of the time, even when we're in social situations. To some extent, we might be thinking about what we're doing or how we're presenting ourselves. We are talking to ourselves constantly. And the old way of looking at things is that when we use language to define what we're doing or define what we're feeling, but what we don't realize is that it also directs what we do and what we feel, what we think about things. Language internally creates the way we are going to think and then behave. It can control our brain. So common sense tells us that if we begin to use it in an efficient, positive way, if we can harness that internal linguistic energy, then it translates into how productive we're going to be, how relaxed, how intelligent we think, all the things. It will control. It's a mind-body thing, and that's another concept when we talk about language. We almost always, I should say, have a tendency to separate the mind and the body, and we talk about it that way. They are one and the same in many ways. The mind controls every system and everything we do in the body. The body, if it's healthy, provides the nutrients, that provides the mind with everything it needs to work. So that connection is so intense, so intricate, that when we learn to control language and how we are thinking, we control the body, and we just have such an efficient machine running if we can do that.
Have you seen studies on the impact of positive speak, negative speak?
Absolutely. Language is one of those things I love to work with. You can see it right through the animal kingdom and into humanity. The brain is an organ that trains. It constantly learns, and the structures of the brain change. So language not only affects how we think and how we feel and what we do, it affects the way the brain grows. The physical structures are affected by what we feed it. So if we're going to feed it with negativity, those physical structures will grow with that in mind, so to speak. If we're willing to do it to talk to ourselves in positive fashion, the brain grows physically and intellectually in a fashion that supports positive growth.
Are we able to change in our adult life how we talk to ourselves effectively, or is this something that really needs to be cultivated from a young age?
Well, it's easier if you cultivate it at a young age. We see that even when it comes to learning other languages. When we're younger, the brain is still growing. It accepts things very quickly. But that doesn't mean you can't do it when you're older. Can't teach the old dog new tricks thing is not real. The proof of this is if you are consistently training yourself with negative thought, well, there's the training process and the brain is reacting. So obviously you can do it with positive energy. The key, however, is as you get older, you have to be more conscious about it. You have to actually say, this is what I want to think. I'm going to do this. You have to be monitoring your speech. When it goes negative, you have to stop it and replace it with positive speech. So it's just about putting more conscious energy into it as you get older.
Well, Why is the hill so much steeper for positive speaking to ourselves than for negative speaking?
Because positive requires a lot more effort. Yeah. Negative, you can just say it and then do nothing. You're done. Your statement is made. Just like we see on social media. Someone posts something, the next one goes after that person, the next one comes in. It's very easy. The brain doesn't interpret anything that has to change. I just essentially said to something about you, or there's something about this world that I don't like, and we just go after it. When you go positive, you also create an air of honesty, of self-honesty that has to happen. When we're positive, to get there, we have to be honest with ourselves. When we're honest with ourselves, we are now holding ourselves accountable, and that makes us have to do some things to change. We don't like to do that.
When we're talking about this, like so many things are popping up here for me. There are some steps that we can take, but first of all, where does energy play into the way we speak to ourselves? And I'm much more comfortable talking about this now than I was, say, 10 years ago, because again, there is science behind energy and frequency that we emit and that we receive from our surrounding. So how does that interplay between energy and the way we look at ourselves and the way we speak to ourselves? How do we cultivate a positive energy, or where is that interplay from your side of the table?
I always tell people, you're thinking in your mind. In your mind, you're thinking maybe there's words, there's language. It's energy. Thought is energy. Language is the deliverance of an energy field, so to speak. It's all energy. So energy is what fuels the brain. If your energy now is something you've decided to make more positive, then you have now automatically accessed a positive energy source. It's your language. And if you can do that, and examples, you go into a restaurant and all right, the food's average and the service is okay and it was a little expensive. You might walk out of there and say, you know what, I really thought it was going to be much better and I don't think I had a great time and I don't know if I'd go back there again. Well, okay, so what you did is take that environment, bring it into your brain and create negativity there and define it as such so that your 2 or 3 hours there wasn't the greatest time in the world. Or you can say, well, that was nice. I saw that thing over there, or that waitress was good, or that server was good, or something about the ambiance. You can find things and you create then that positive energy. That's what your body's going to feed on. It's in anything that we do. You and I are talking about working out and what the mindset in before you go into that workout. I'm going to do this. I'm going to nail this. I'm going to feel really great about it. Versus, oh, this is going to be hard. The body responds. It's all energy. That's what we're dealing with.
When we're talking about energy, okay, we can cultivate through the way we talk to ourselves. We can see the glass half full. We can do that in situations. What about the outward energy that's being imposed upon us?
Again, our brains are recipients of what's coming in. If the environment, the neurological environment, so to speak, what's in our brain is already positive, it becomes a receptacle that actually changes negative energy. But if the receptacle is already negative, then negative energy has a very easy access point, but it has a hard time getting in and changing a positive energy flow if we allow ourselves to learn how to become skilled in keeping that our minds positive. It's just like, whether gratitude is another energy source, if you will. If we keep that our mind grateful, no matter what comes in, it goes into that repository, into that grateful energy field, if you will, and then it perishes there because it can't get through our positive resources.
Are there steps to cultivating positive self-speak? And, I want to keep things real here. If someone has a tragedy happen to them, or, we're not telling you to turn that into, lemons into lemonade. That's not realistic.
No, it isn't.
and we want to, as I said, we want to keep things where this is doable. So in a world where everything's not going to be perfect, how do we take step by step to try and create positivity within our thoughts and within our day?
The first thing we all have to think about is that when the crisis hits or the negative energy impacts us, it depends on what is coming into, as I said before. So the key is to practice these steps all the time. That's the key. Not just to say, okay, I'm going to go into this situation. Oh, this happened. Okay, I've got to get positive now. I'll almost guarantee you that won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is to be constantly training our brain as often as we can. That's that conscious part of things. Those steps, I'm a very action-oriented person. So the first thing in anything I do, when we talk about change, I talk about purging. So the first step is to say, okay, I will not speak or think in negative fashion. I know it's going to keep on happening. So every time it does, I'll correct myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna begin to phase negative out because I want to bring positive energy in. But if I'm going to bring it into a place where negative energy already occupies the space, I'm going to have a difficult time. I'm going to purge first. It's sort of like when someone comes in my office and says, I've got anxiety and how do we do this? And I have to give me some steps to change it. And the first thing I'm going to say is, let's see what you're doing that, is not working for you. We're going to purge. How much coffee are you drinking every day? You have energy drinks in there? What medications are you using? How's your diet and your sleep? And then they start looking at me and say, man, there's a lot to do. And I say, no, there's just things to take out because we have to clear space. It's as simple as that. So the first step is to stop yourself from thinking negative. And that means monitoring things. That means, oh, there's Susie over there and I can't stand her. Well, you created a negative environment for when Susie walks over. There's Susie. I'm not going to say a negative thing. When she comes over, I'll deal with it accordingly. A whole different way to look at it. And we start with those kinds of things. If we do think the negative thought, we say, okay, I'm going to stop this right now. I know it's not going to work for me. It's only going to make me feel bad. I need to clear that out. So we're creating the space for the positive energy, for that positive language that we're going to use to be able to be stored.
And then we just move on from there.
And then the second step is now to create positive energy, to say good things about myself, about the way I live, where I live, my job, my friends, whatever it may be. I'm going to find some positives there. So if I put the combination together, I'm not going to say negative things. I'm not going to speak negatively in my head. When it happens, I will correct it, and then I will move to something positive. My brain is going to start to change. The internal structures begin to adapt, and I start doing things just a little bit differently.
So it's open-ended. We do have to figure out how we're going to talk to ourselves in a positive manner once we've made the space, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of us, it's different because we have different things on our timelines. We have different experiences. We're in different places. But the bottom line is, it's making a decision. I am going to do this. I'm going to keep on doing it. It's sort of like if you have a workout plan, you get in there and you say, I've been doing this for a month and I only lost a pound or two. I'm not feeling real, so great about it. Next thing you know, you skipped one. Yeah, you skipped two. And then before you know it, a month went by and you haven't worked out because, it was hard to keep on doing. You didn't give your body and your mind enough time to train, to learn how to and adapt to it. As we do this, the body and the mind adapts. It's a natural phenomenon that will occur, but we have to stay focused and keep doing it.
You have to stay focused because the mind, well, at least mine, I can't speak to everybody's, it likes to regress to the negative. It seems to be a happy place there, as an excuse to do hard things. And, whenever we want to do hard things, that requires a step back, take a deep breath and drive through. And that's difficult.
The neurological explanation for that is that the mind wants to get to the point that it keeps us happy and does so kind of on autopilot. We don't have to think. We don't have to make many decisions. We just have to get in and flow into our comfort zone. The problem is there's no growth in the comfort zone. the brain adjusts to it. Doesn't matter how we're behaving in there, it stays there. It doesn't grow. It's when that happens, it becomes toxic. But now when that toxin kind of takes over, we don't know how to get out of that. And that's what I just said before. It's going to take some time. It's a training process, but the advice is don't make this a negative chore. Oh, I hate this. I don't want to do it, but I've got to do this or I won't feel better, because that's not going to happen. You're changing. Enjoy. It's a step-by-step, small steps, incremental process that you should enjoy all the way through. You're putting positive energy in your head. That should make you feel good. So, and you do that by staying focused little by little, making those changes, adapting when you regress a bit, just pulling yourself back to it and not quitting. And the brain will adjust. The brain will either stay in a negative autopilot place, or it would create new autopilot places to go. And when you do that and you adapt to change, autopilot places have a short life. You stay there for a while and you say, well, I'd like more, just like working out. Gee, I just did 10 push-ups. Well, now next week I did 15. I think I can go. I might get 50 out of this. Mm-hmm. What a great place to be. That's a comfort zone when you get there.
And, it sounds like this kind of, if we're doing the analogy to exercise, this area of positive speak is something that always has to be exercised and flexed and built upon. So it's not a finish line. There's no like, okay, once you do this and incorporate these steps, you're going to hit the finish line and we're done. This is a lifelong habit to cultivate. And when we come back for the next segment of the show, I want to talk a bit more about this mind-body connection, and also, Faust, if we can get talking about your series and books and goal setting. So a lot to get to the second half. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub. We're going to continue our conversation here with Faust Ruggiero. Let's talk about the mind-body connection and how to set goals within all that we've talked about. So mind-body connection, positive speak, and setting realistic goals. Go.
It's something I've been teaching for years. I write about it in all the books I write. The mind and the body are so synergistically connected. What one does, the other must be involved with. And that's something we really have to start thinking. We're not going to train the brain, not bring the body along. We're not going to train the body and not bring the brain along. They're interwoven. They are one and the same. So when I talk to people about what I'm doing with that, when I say here, these are the things that we're going to do to move you forward. What I'm talking about always is getting the body and the brain in the mix. We used exercise as an example. You can use reading a book. You can sit down and read your book and eat your cookies and have your soda with you and do all those kinds of things. Okay, you're nourishing your mind, but your brain is not getting what it needs. And your body is not getting what it needs. That body's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down based on the sugar and whatever else you're putting into it. So now you affect the way your brain is working. Keep that in mind in anything that you do. Get your body and your brain in the mix. How do we do that? First, let's keep the body as healthy as you can. I mentioned that before. Get enough sleep. Have the proper nutrition. Don't put things in your body that don't belong there. Exercise. Do all those things. Keep your body as healthy as you can. And same thing with your mind. We're talking about positive language. We're talking about doing all these things that keep the energy flow positive. When you do those together, you really up the, increase the possibility that you're going to be successful. We mentioned goal setting. Then it's about setting goals to get there. And there are very easy ways to set goals because we're typically not very proficient when we do that. We want to get to the finish line as fast as we can. We subscribe to the notion of doing as little as possible for the maximum rewards, and talk about it, a crazy way to think. It's one of those things where you set goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, have action steps for them, and you get there and it works.
Are there increments to the goals you're setting? Like I know I've read books where it's like set a big goal and then set little goals to get there. Is that how you think?
Yes, I do. And actually, I have a chapter in the first book, the Fix Yourself Handbook. I have a chapter on goal setting, and what I talk about it's what I call it is a goal grid, and you can write it down. Most people who have done this will write it down. They'll have a long-term goal. For example, the one I put in the book is you're going to set up an organic pastry shop. Okay, that's your goal. Then you should have some at least 3 short-term goals. Goal might be to raise enough money in order to do this, or to acquire the space to do that, or to get a business education, or at least a certificate, something that allows you to do the business part of your pastry shop. Under those short-term goals, there are action steps, and I always say put 3 action steps. For example, if you're going to talk about doing the business part, you might say, I'm going to read these business books, or I'm going to take this college course. And those action steps always have time frames involved in them. I'm going to do those starting this day. I'm going to do the next one starting this day. As those wrap up, we put new action plans in. And I explain how to do this in the book. People who have done this say, this is so simple and so easy. And once you put it to paper, it holds you accountable. The action steps hold you accountable. I've done that with people for 30 years. And people who understand it and are willing to commit to it and do something like a goal grid, they start setting goals in their lives, and they start changing the way they do things. Little by little, you get there. You're not getting there fast. This get there in 10 easy steps doesn't exist. It never did. We get there slowly, and you are right. It's a lifelong process, but then you have this roadmap. You say, no matter what I do, I can do it with this in mind, and I will accomplish it.
You mentioned your books and excerpts from it. It's called, you have 4 books, correct?
Correct.
And it's the Fix Yourself Empowerment series.
Correct.
So it started off with your Fix Yourself Handbook, then the Anxiety Handbook, Depression Handbook, and Anger Handbook. It is a series for certain, but what is the commonality that is woven through the 4 books?
Very simple premise. We have everything we need inside us to be powerful, to be efficient, to be loving, to be happy with our lives. We have a tendency to look outside ourselves to be happy. Once we learn how to go inside, if you will, access what we have, what our mind is capable of, what our body is capable of. Once we go inside and we learn how to work with our internal processes, then we get to the point where things become balanced. And that's the other premise in the books, internal balance. We are physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual beings. When we can get those balanced, there's the power. And what I'm teaching is very simple. It's nothing new in anything that I ever do. I'm very, very tenacious about keeping that in the mix. It's nothing you have to learn. You just have to learn how to do it. It's natural. It's a natural way to do things. So everything we have inside us is already there. Learning how to access it creates a balance on those 4 attributes. There's where the power comes from.
And it's based on the Process Life program. This is a program that you've created?
Yes.
And this is something you use in practice?
I do. I have. When you counsel as long as I have, you start to see what works and what doesn't work. And 30 years ago, I realized, there are processes that people need to use. And I'm just naming them. You have honesty, and you have going slow, and you have getting your intellect in front of your emotions, boundary setting and goal setting. All these things are all processes. So when I write the books, just as I counsel, I let people know what all these processes are, how to use them, and how to incorporate them in their lives. When they start doing that, life becomes so easy. The very fact that they're they're defining the process, that they're seeing that that is in fact something that leads to something bigger, it turns the lights on for people. So there are 52 processes. In the first book, all of them were used. And then as we go through the subsequent books, the selective processes are used. There might be 20 or 30 in the next 4 books. And then the 5th book, the Fix Your Addiction Handbook, is coming out probably by the end of the year. It's the same thing. It's the processes applied to a different human problem.
And do the books need to be read in any particular order? Do we need to start with the Fix Yourself Handbook first and then move on?
You don't have to. If you want to gain all the benefits of the whole program, then I'd advise reading the Fix Yourself Handbook. That's the flagship book, if you will. If your problem is depression, go right to that if you need to. Throughout the books, I have a tendency to go back and say, well, in the first book I said this, or in this chapter in that book I said that. I write my books in short chapters, 8 to 10 pages, typically. There's information so that in those 6 or 7 pages, then I go to the action steps. Here's the information I gave you. Here are the action steps. Now do these things. So it's laid out as a roadmap for them in every chapter. And then it's a reference book. You slip back, as you said before, we will regress a bit. I can go back to that particular chapter and said, okay, I slipped back on anger, or I slipped back on people pleasing. I can go there and read the 6 or 7 pages and get my action steps and get back on track.
Now, when it comes to the processes of your books and the target audience of your book, of your series, can anybody read these books and draw information from them that will positively affect them? Or is your series geared towards people who are struggling?
No, anyone can. Struggling people certainly will benefit. But when I wrote the books, it took a year before I started writing and did lots of research. And, the first thing I came up with, that just shot out to me, was self-help books tend to be read, by women in the ages 20s to 40s, maybe in the early 50s. I said, well, okay, great. What about the rest of the people? Men weren't reading much in the way of self-help. So I wrote the books so that they can be read by anyone. You can start reading these in your teens if you want to, and people in their 70s are reading them. I wanted that. I wanted to cross gender. I wanted to be available for anyone, doesn't matter what walk of life, gay people, straight people, different races, religions, whatever it may be. I wanted everyone to be able to access the information, so they're written with that in mind.
Well, the underlying thing is we're all humans. And we seem to, in this period of time, strayed from, it sounds like the books are meant to draw us back into our humanity, where we seem to have lost things, looking into ourselves, looking at the things that we've lost, our eye hasn't been fixed on them. When you talk about honesty and some of the other things that you've brought up, these are not new concepts. These are just concepts that we have moved away from, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I'm redefining some things. Honesty, for example, when I do workshops and lectures, I'll ask the people, you think you're honest? Of course, all the hands go up. Yes. And I said, well, I'm going to define what I think honesty is, and I'm going to ask you that question again. So then I say, first thing about honesty is it's going to be uncomfortable. So when you're honest, are you uncomfortable? And then they look at me. And I say, then it's going to access those things about you that maybe you don't like. You're still honest. More hands go down. In the end, what I'm trying to tell them is honesty has layers, so to speak. We've turned honesty into a survival thing, kind of I need to just be honest enough so that you don't really know much about me. It looks like I'm honest, but my emotions don't become challenged. If you're going to be honest, your emotions are going to be challenged. You're going to say, I don't like that part of things. And then it's going to hold you accountable. And then when you get there, then you have the ability to change that. You're not defining horrible things about yourself. You're just going in there and saying, okay, I'm not sure I like that part of me. I'm going to try to change it, or I might need some help to change it, but I'm going to change it. So, I like it in the first book to peeling an onion. The first level is just the skin, no big deal. That's where most of our honesty is. Then it goes a little deeper, and you start to smell it, and you go a little uncomfortable. You go a little deeper, maybe the tears come out. That's what real honesty is.
What I like about the books, it pertains to me. I can't speak to everybody, but I like that they're short chapters. I think that, as we are busy, we talked about this, everything is fast paced. Reading is not something that is as valued as it used to be. When I grew up, I read books all the time. Now there's so many other things that I can be doing. But when you can bite off a good chunk of knowledge, 10 minutes even before you go to bed, 15 minutes before you go to bed. This is pretty valuable, I think, in this day and age. Was that a concept that you were trying to rear in when you decided to do these short chapters?
Absolutely. When I started researching how people were reading and learning, it's exactly what I came up with. They're going fast. They want, the Reader's Digest version, if you will. I was calling it microwave learning, everything going fast.
Cole's Notes, the Cole's Notes.
Yeah. So I said, if I condense lots of sentences and get this, pack 7 or 8 pages full of information, then first of all, I'm going to hold their interest, and then I'm going to give them the opportunity to say, you know what? I know I can read 7 or 8 pages today. So, I can sit down, and even if it takes me a half hour or 45 minutes, I can invest that time. I don't even have to read the whole chapter. I can go back and read part of it tomorrow, and I'll still get the information. That's what I wanted. And that's really, I put that in because that's where the men are. Men are going to say, I'm not sitting with a book for, most self-help books, if you read them, they're 30 or 40 pages long at each chapter, something like that. And men simply won't do it. They'll get lost in it. Women are also saying, what they were saying when I was doing the research is, yeah, I'm getting a lot of information. I feel like it's all there, but I have no concept whatsoever about how to use it. So that's what we've done in self-help. We've inundated people with information and not enough in terms of actionable steps to turn that into an efficient plan for our lives. So that's what the end of the chapter is all about. Here are the 7 things you can do based on this chapter. And then what I've done with now all the subsequent books is I've done that for maybe 15 or 16 chapters. Then the last 10 chapters is a complete roadmap. Okay, chapter by chapter, do this. This is how you're going to arrange what your body needs to access what we've talked about, anxiety or depression or anger, whatever it may be. And I've given them 10 or so chapters of an intense blueprint that they can put in their lives. And it's very, very workable stuff.
So has the intent had the effect that you were hoping for? What has your feedback been on your series?
That's the nice part, Kathy. And I came back, whether it's professional reviewers or people, just everyday people reading the book, have come back and say, this was nice. Finally, that's what I got. Finally, someone said, okay, here's the information. Here's how you apply it. For example, married people on the first book, when the Fix Yourself Handbook, were reading a chapter every day. And then they were sitting down together and discussing the chapter and the action plan and how it related to their lives. It wasn't even a book on marriage, but they began to apply it that way. In that it's short, actionable, and there's a reference piece to it we can go back to. The feedback was off the charts on that one.
That's amazing. I mean, all in all, we're just trying to be better humans. If we're going to your books, we're trying to be better humans. And so you can apply that in any aspect of your life, be it marriage, be it child rearing, any aspect. Wonderful. And congratulations on the series. You said you've got a new book coming out on addiction towards the end of 2024. Where can people access your series, buy the books, contact you, learn more about you?
The easiest way to go is just to go to my website. It is my name, faustruggiero.com. Everything about me, all the books, all that information is there. You can even find excerpts from the book so you get an idea how they're laid out. There's a contact link there, and the links to buy the books on Amazon there. It's also included on the website.
And you're hoping, I am correct in saying you're hoping to get this next book out in 2024?
The next book is actually almost written. I have about 20% of it to write. Then I'll go through the editing process. All of that should be in the copy editor's hands in early September. I would expect the book to be out right around the beginning of November.
Oh, excellent. Okay, wonderful. I really want to thank you for being on the show, for sharing your insights and this great conversation. I think self-speak is something that we all can do better on. And I appreciate your insights into all of this space.
Well, it's been a pleasure spending time with you, Kathy. I'm just thrilled you asked me. So, I'm here for anyone. If anyone needs to contact me, I do return messages. The contact link is on the page. So by all means, feel free to contact me.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Faust, and everybody. We will talk to you next week on the Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi, here